Thank you for joining us and welcome to another all-new episode of the Auto Guide Show brought to you by eBay Motors. This week, Kyle drives a hybrid pickup truck. We drive an electric SUV. We talk about a lot of other hybrid and electric vehicles that are coming down the road. And then we talk to Bridgestone about tires and Toyota about the new Tacoma. But first, a word from our sponsor. eBay Motors is here for the ride. Your elbow grease, fresh installs, and a whole lot of love transformed 100,000 miles and a body full of rust into a driveway entirely its own. Brake kits, LED headlights, whatever you need, eBay Motors has it. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. Okay, so we're going to get started. We got a lot to dig into. Kyle, you were still at Toyota Palooza when this drive happened. I think we're pretty much done now.
Yes. Yeah, we're pretty much done for a little while anyway. The fourth vehicle that I drove, which is the all-new Crown Signia, we'll be hearing more about that in June. But this is the third vehicle that I drove at the major event, and it is the Tacoma Hybrid. We've driven the Tacoma before. We drove it late last year, but that was the pure gas model. So that included the two-door, the manual, and a bunch of different trims. But this is the fun one because it includes the TRD Pro and the new Trail Hunter. My overall view on the truck is, I mean, it's great. Hybrids make everything better as far as I'm concerned. And sure enough, that translates to a mid-sized truck.
I don't know, Kyle. The internet's told me hybrids and four cylinders ruin the Tacoma and it's going to be terrible. And then in 10 years, everyone's going to want one.
It's true, right? And I mean, don't get me wrong. We don't know the long-term reliability of this brand new powertrain, but we do know that Toyota has, 25, almost 30 years of hybrid experience at this point. So, yeah, I mean, the torque is the part that I really enjoy in the Tacoma because it basically drives like a diesel in that sense, where you get a ton of torque barely over idle, and that's great for off-roading, right? You need that right off the bat. We jumped the truck. That was a blast. The TRD Pro is very quick on the dirt, and that's where Toyota found this gap for Trail Hunter, where, actually, I don't really want to spoil that because we're going to have a talk later in this episode with Sheldon from Toyota about the Tacoma. So I'm actually going to save more of my talk about that for the interview.
Sounds good. All right, we'll move on to the next vehicle. This is one that neither you or I drove. Our freelancer Kanal got to drive this over in Europe, and it is the electric Macan. And it's funny, the controversy this is bringing up because, Porsche can't go all electric, keep the Macan pure. And it's like, these are the same people a couple years ago were like, Porsche can't have an SUV, keep Porsche pure. And it's kind of moved on. But reading his review and talking to others that have driven it, they're all pretty much saying the same thing. It is heavier and a little less responsive. Like this, it doesn't have sort of the sound or a bit of the, I guess, engagement with your senses, but they've all said it's fun to drive, it's incredibly quick, and it's well done. It's just pretty much a small SUV version of the Taycan.
Which is what Porsche needed, because as great as the Taycan is, people want SUVs. And let's be real, I mean this in the nicest way possible to anyone at Porsche who's listening. A good chunk of people are buying Macans because they just want a Porsche, right? They're not concerned about at the limit handling or ultimate feedback from the steering. They want a Porsche. If you make it electric, but it does everything else that a Macan does, what's the problem?
Yep. No, I fully agree. And I mean, they've already said, like the 911 won't be going electric, whereas the Cayman and the Boxster will. And we don't know about the Cayenne for sure yet. But yeah, if they kind of have an offering on both sides, I think that's fine.
Yeah. And it looks great in that Provence color.
Yeah, and I look forward to hopefully driving one over here in the coming months.
Yes.
All right, now we move on to a review I did. So a couple weeks ago, you and I tried to set up a comparison, and it did not work, but it gave me a chance to drive a fully loaded Honda Civic Touring sedan for the first time in a couple of years. Those who aren't familiar, we named this the AutoGuide Car of the Year for 2022. So that's going back over 2 years when we made that decision. And we said then it was basically not just the best new car to come out for its class, it was the best car in its class. So I wanted to go back and see if that's still true. And after spending a week in it, I think it is. It's not the smoothest, it's not the most luxurious, or it's not the fastest, but it does all those things second or third in the class, whereas everything else is compromised one way or another. So I even say in the review that I think the biggest problem Honda has is I don't know why you get in a court over this, except for getting the hybrid, but that's not going to matter soon. So, yeah.
No, it's not. And that'll be interesting. It's really nice that you got to do this just not too soon before the whole Civic lineup gets updated, right? Including the hybrid that you mentioned. Because if it's already still setting the bar, then, how much better is a facelifted model going to be?
Yeah, I mean, its only real problem is price in both Canada and the US. So in the US, it's about 2,000 or 3,000 more than most competitors similarly equipped. I wasn't putting it up against Corolla hybrid all-wheel drives or Mazda 3s with a 250 horsepower turbo, because that's not where this car plays. But when you do apples to apples, it is a little more premium, but it's one of those you pay for what you get.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and then back to you, back in Europe.
No, I was not.
Yeah, it's not Europe. That doesn't look like Europe.
It's not. No, it's cold. I think it's the last snowfall that we got here in Canada, but it was good to revisit the X2, or I guess it wasn't really a revisit, but yeah, I drove the M35i in Europe earlier this year, and while I got the idea of it, and I think it's a fun enough kind of quasi-hot hatch mini SUV, it rode way too stiff, even in Portugal. And so my concern, or my curiosity, was how does the base model stack up? And as it turns out, this is a really good all-rounder. The xDrive 28i, still pretty quick. I mean, it's 240 horsepower. It's highway speeds in about 6 seconds. Same transmission, same engine, just detuned. So you're getting more or less the same package, but with a much more comfortable all-round suspension tune. So yeah, it probably isn't quite as sporty as at a track, and I'm sure the 3 people who will ever take one of these things to the track are going to be bothered by that. But other than that, it's a more stylish X1, and you and I are both fans of the X1, so I this makes a lot more sense to me in terms of where it lands in BMW's lineup.
Yeah, and like I said, it's stylish. It's one of those certain angles that it looks a little off, but when you see it in person, it all works. And it has a smaller grille, which is a big plus. So I hope to get behind the wheel sometime soon as well. It's better than the old X2. I'll just say that.
I liked the shape of the old one, but you never really knew entirely where it landed. So this one makes a lot more sense. And I think versus something like a Alfa Romeo Tonale, I can see why someone would go with this, because that shape and the powertrain and the interior.
All right, well, we're going to go and have an update on Project Genesis Coupe. This week, I am putting in a little bit of performance, more for feel than actual numbers. So let's go take a look. eBay Motors is here for the ride. With the parts you need at the prices you want, and with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, they're guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. Welcome to another installment of Project Hyundai Genesis Coupe. This week we are not going to do an upgrade that's just based on looks like the previous 2 weeks. What we're going to do is install this thing here. It is a Torque Solutions short shifter. Now for those unfamiliar, all a short shifter really does do is shorten up the amount of shift. So this heavy piece of metal will actually make first, second, third, all my gear changes slightly shorter, which in turn means they're quicker and should make you faster. This isn't really that much of a performance upgrade, it's more of a feel upgrade, which to me is even more important than the performance. I'm not going to put this in, I'm going to let the professionals do it, so I'm going to rely on the expertise of my good friends at Clarkson Fine Cars. So let's just pack this up and get on the road and go see them.
To get the short shifter installed, I have come to where I get all of the work done on my personal cars, Clarkson Fine Cars. They're going to install the shifter and then I'll give it a test. If you're in the Greater Toronto area and you need work on your car, come to Clarkson Fine Cars and use the promo code the AutoGuide Show and they will give you preferred pricing.
All right, so the short shifter has been installed, and as you can see, it's sitting much shorter, and the shifts, because it's shorter, are so much quicker. It is unbelievable. So let's take it out on the road and see how it performs. All right, we're out on the road here, and besides being short throws, I am finding the engagement of each gear is so much firmer and crisper. There used to be some play in the transmission before. A lot of that probably had to do with it being just old, maybe the linkage, bushings, who knows what was just wearing out. Now it's just short, concise, pops into gear, no problem. It's gonna take some getting used to because I'm not used to how this shifts. The only downside is in first and second and a little bit in third, the actual shift lever rattles around a bit in its place, probably because this isn't a stock part and it's sitting somewhere it's not used to. It's a little annoying, but there's nothing actually wrong with the car and I can get used to it. So overall, I'd say the short shifter is a win. I am looking forward to doing some more parts. Do you hear that rattle? It's annoying, but it's fine. If I put my hand on it, it goes away. And then in third, it's even less.
Hi, Mike here, interrupting myself. You may see me driving if you're watching the video and wonder why the sound's different. This is a sort of update after the fact. I had the short shifter looked at again, and the great people at Clarkson Fine Cars did what they could, but basically it's an aftermarket part, and without the same bushings it used to have, it's just rubbing a bit. I have noticed after driving it for a couple weeks, it is almost non-existent now, so maybe it's just sort of wearing itself into the little groove that it wanted to make. If the radio's on, I don't hear it at all. Overall, the gains and feel I get from the short shift is way better than any sort of situation or nuisance that may come from the noise, and I think it'll eventually go away. So yeah, as I said, very happy with this upgrade.
All right, well, that was the latest update on Project Genesis Coupe. Mike, I gotta ask, like, is the vibration, the rattle really that bad?
It is and it isn't. So when I first got the car, first, second, and sixth gear really made a lot of noise, and I drove it across the city, and even my son was like, what's that noise? But then when I drove it throughout the week and later on, it got better and better. So maybe it's kind of wearing itself into the point. I took it back to Clarkson Fine Cars. We took a look at it. It's basically there's bushings missing when you shrink the shifter down because it's a solid piece of metal to, like, you know, give you direct hard shifts, and it does that. Like, it's so much more direct with no play. So I like the feel. I know performance wise it's no real gain, but it's just a feel thing, and I think half the part of driving a fun car is the feel, not just how fast it is. So if the radio's on, I don't really hear it at all anymore, so I can live with it. It's just you modify a car, things are gonna you're gonna have to live with things like that. These weren't parts that were crazy tested by the OEM for years. Like, it's so, you know, I know what I'm getting into.
Yeah. All right. Well.
All right. So let's move on to the news. The first story is a sad story. The Subaru legacy is no more. This year, it will be discontinued in Canada. Early next year in the US. I mean, it's not a surprise. No one's really buying them, unfortunately. The Turbo was such a nice little car. Well, not little, but such a nice car. Sort of a secret in the segment, but the Outback crushes it in sales, and people don't buy sedans, sadly.
No, it's true. Since we reviewed one about 2 years ago, I think I've seen about 3 on the road. So it's just, it had its time. It did well, and it served a purpose when people were buying a lot more cars. And at least, you know, we still do have a Subaru sedan on the market. We have one, and it's the WRX.
Yeah, and that's probably part of the legacy's problem is for less money, you got a little more power from basically the same engine in the WRX, which isn't all that small anymore. So it's hard to sort of step up in price for a slightly bigger car that doesn't have the cool name or the cool looks to a degree. So at least the WRX is still here. At least it also still has a manual. So, you know, we'll take what we can get, and hopefully it doesn't go away.
No.
So moving on to the next, there is the 2025 Ram, either RHO or RHO. I'm assuming it's RHO since it's all capitalized. I wasn't at the actual presentation. Our freelancer Jeff Wilson was. And
fill-in host of this show. So basically, it is not a Ram TRX replacement. Ram is very direct in saying that multiple times, that this is a different vehicle. Now, it has the Hurricane inline six turbo, making 540 horsepower, I believe. So that's more than the Raptor or the Chevrolet Silverado ZR2 Bison, which is what this is really targeting. This is an off-road special. Has a lot of the TRX suspension, like high-end goodies. Not all of it, but a lot. So that's cool. The TRX really plays against the Raptor R, which is a whole different world. So, you know, this is a Raptor Bison competitor. In the States, it's actually undercutting them a little bit, but in Canada, it's not. So it's sort of, no one's cross-shopping these. Like, no one ever does. You buy the brand that you're loyal to in this segment. That's how it's always been. I mean, unless you're a newcomer, but you've probably already decided on your brand. It's just Ram saw they need something in that segment. So here it is.
Yeah, and I'm looking forward to it. I drove the refreshed regular model, and that engine is fantastic. The TRX was a bag of laughs. So kind of mixing the two recipes together, yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. All right, Lamborghini finally announced their hybrid that they've been talking about off and on for a while. No surprise, it's the Urus, because the plug-in hybrid system matches up to the V8 quite easily. It's almost like it's used in other vehicles.
That's so strange. Huh.
Yeah,
weird.
I don't know who else uses that V8 in a plug-in hybrid setup.
It couldn't be a German brand, could it? No.
No way. Anyway, so yeah, I mean, Lamborghini though went Lamborghini, and the engine didn't lose a single piece of power, and they're using this more for performance. I mean, yes, you can go all electric and putt around without having to turn the engine on, but it's really meant to give you, you know, even more power and acceleration. And it's already an SUV, so it's heavier, whatever.
Yeah. You're like, percentage wise, the added weight is less than if you added a plug-in hybrid system to a sports car. And that's a weird note, a plug-in hybrid sports car, right? Who would have thought about one of those?
Yeah, not a German brand.
No.
All right, and while we're on the topic of SUVs and electrification, Mercedes finally showed off the electrified G-Wagon, which is interesting because they didn't say anything about it when they showed us the new G-Wagon. We were all like, well, where's the electric one?
Yeah, and then they gave it what might be the worst name for a trim. I mean, I don't know about you, Mike, but when this came across the digital desk, when I saw this name, I was like, okay, when are we getting the EV one? I'm waiting for it, because this name does not imply it. So for listeners, the full name is the 2025 Mercedes-Benz G80 with EQ technology.
G580.
Sorry, did I say?
Yeah, you said G80. It's not,
did I say G80? G580. My bad. Yeah, but with EQ technology, that doesn't imply, to me, that seems like it's a hybrid of some sort, because
exactly.
Yeah,
I read it the exact same way.
Yeah, but Mercedes is killing the EQ sub-branding, which is probably for the best, to be honest, because then in the future, when everything is electrified, and they can just kind of say, like, here are all of our models. Here, they just happen to be electric. So it makes sense, but I mean, right now it is a mouthful.
Yeah, and like the 580 that's used on other vehicles, because, you know, it was 500, then it was 550, now it's 580. So yeah, it just sounded like, I thought, oh, it's the regular V8 in this now instead of the AMG powertrain. And yeah, where's the electric? But that's it. Spec stats, it's a big off-road box, so they're not going to be crazy impressive. And people who buy this are probably not going to off-road it. So
probably not. But I mean, it sounds cool as heck. An electric motor at each corner, 800 and something pound-feet of torque, a solid rear axle. Like, I am excited. And as someone who hasn't yet driven a regular Geländewagen, sign me the heck up. Mercedes, I'm all ears.
Oh yeah, no doubt. It's going to be quick in a straight line, and it's got some cool tech, and it can tank turn and whatnot. But it's just, like, people are going to buy this as a status. They're not taking this off-road, but that's probably fine. G-Wagons.
Yeah.
And sticking with Mercedes, they also introduced their new AMG GT, and it's a hybrid, which is, again, no shock at all. So this is the 63, or is it just the equivalent of what it was? but it's
so, yeah, 63, right? Equivalent.
yeah, so it's the big one, and yeah, they're using batteries, electrics, and smaller engines to make lots of power. So
Yeah.
good on them.
Yeah, and
Here's
I
to see
mean,
it in practice.
I mean, ever since not since they built a handful of those all electric SLSs like 15 years ago or whatever,
Oh yeah,
we haven't really seen any of the brands electrify their sports cars outside of I mean, we're just starting to see it now, and then we saw that trio in the early 2010s with the P1 and the LaFerrari and the 918. But now we're starting to see it. Like we have the E-Ray, we have this. We're seeing more electrification, and because brands can use it for power and performance, not just for fuel efficiency's sake, it should be interesting. I mean, 800 horsepower in an AMG GT should be a blast. We'll see how it functions. We haven't driven the regular one yet, so.
Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to it. So we are going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we will be talking to Bridgestone about sort of the do's and don'ts of tire maintenance and purchasing, and basically what you should be doing with your tires and what you should not be ignoring. And then we'll come back and talk with Colin about F1. So we'll see you in a couple of minutes. eBay Motors is here for the ride. Okay, everyone, let's take a minute and talk about the one that got away. The vehicle you once owned and for whatever reason had to get rid of, and to this day fully regret ever doing so. For me, it's my Subaru SVX. It was a 1997 model, which was one of the last years it was ever sold here. It was black on the outside and it had the beige leather and suede interior. It was in amazing condition for its age because it was just a one-owner vehicle. The interior was near flawless. The paint was pretty good considering it was about a 20-year-old car when I got it. I just loved everything about it. I loved the quirkiness because I love oddball cars. I love the window within the window, the power button on the gear shifter, the way the dash was laid out and you could hide the radio behind the fake wood panel. The flat six was just so smooth and it was all-wheel drive, and although it wasn't overly quick, it still had enough power. The problem was, within a year of buying that car, I ended up selling it because I got a great deal on another vehicle. And to this day, I regret doing so. Part of the reason I sold it was, although it was in great shape, it wasn't perfect and there were things that needed to be fixed, like the air conditioner, reservoir, some bearings, and other bits. And back then there was no eBay guaranteed fit program, so finding parts for such a rare 20-year-old car was not easy. Luckily, I sold it to someone who not only cared for it, but took the time to fix it up. And every once in a while, I do get to still see it, and I still regret ever getting rid of it. I am constantly online looking for a new SVX because now I have a system that I can find parts for it, but I haven't come across one that's both in the right condition and the right price range. With over 122 million parts, you can make sure your number one ride or die stays running smoothly. Brake kits, LED headlights, roof racks, bumpers, whatever your baby needs, eBay Motors has it. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber and not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. Okay, welcome back. We have a special guest that's going to talk tires, which is a pretty important subject. Can you introduce yourself and what you do?
Yeah, thanks for having me. My name is Ian McKinney. I'm a senior product manager for Bridgestone. So I'll cover both the Bridgestone and the Firestone brands. And in particular, I cover the USTMA segments of touring, performance, and winter tires. And then my counterpart at Bridgestone will cover the all-terrain, MT, and highway segments in USTMA. So I will do my best to answer any all questions you might have. If you ask something, kind of wacky about AT tires, I might have to get back to you.
Yeah. No, you cover the two segments I like the most, winter and high performance. So
perfect.
That's all I need up here. So yeah, I mean, talking about tires, it's crazy how neglected they are across North America. You'll see them bald, improperly put on. How important is it to buy a quality set of tires and keep your eye on them?
It is immensely important. Like you said, a lot of people tend to take their tires for granted. It's these things we put on our car and then you forget about it until maybe the last second when all of a sudden you have a close call and it's like, oh, well, now I'm forced to go get a new set. but it is astronomically important. It is the only thing connecting your entire vehicle to the ground, whether that's sitting stationary and just like carrying you and the load of your car off the ground. That's hugely important. But then when you're, going 80 kilometers per hour down the highway, and that's the only thing stopping you from hitting the car in front of you. It's the only thing actually gaining traction for you to move forward. It's the only thing that's able to impose any lateral forces. So if you want to turn to avoid something or get off the exit ramp, all of these things only happen because your tire is translating the force from your car into the road. So it feels like that's something where you would want to invest and not maybe get the cheapest thing possible, because everything about you in that car is only doing those things because the tires are able to translate that information.
Mm-hmm. No, that's great info. I mean, you don't have to convince me, but I know there's a lot of people out there who just say, "What's the cheapest tire I can put on my car?" So,
yeah, and I'm right there with you. Where I remember getting advice when I started, when I became an adult, of like, never cheap out on shoes. And I feel like that's true of cars too. It's like, you should never really cheap out on their shoes.
Shoes for your car. Exactly.
So kind of moving on from that question, Ian, I have a question for you for consumers who are listening, because there are a lot of numbers on modern tires, right? And not everyone knows what all of them mean. So in your opinion, what's a really easy way for consumers to know when it's time to replace their tires?
So there are a couple different ways we can go. If you're maybe more familiar with your tires, or you know your way around a tire and you're looking at the tread of your tire, you probably have a sense of when you're getting close. But if you feel like you really want to know, on all DOT marked tires, which is a regulating body that basically covers all tires in North America, there are what they call wear bars in the grooves of the tire, and they're placed strategically across the pattern and around the circumference of the tire. And basically, it's this tiny little bump of rubber in the bottom of your groove that is 2/32 of an inch tall. And when the tread of your tire wears down to where it's flush with that wear bar, now it is time for you to change your tires. That is like the last signal that, hey, you should be changing your tires. If you don't feel like you have a lot of confidence in understanding whether or not that wear bar that's in the circumferential groove of your tire is completely flush with the tread, you can always go with, on the United States side, the penny test, or in Canada, I think it's the nickel with Queen Elizabeth's crown, where basically you turn that coin upside down and you stick her head into the groove. And if you can see the top of her head or the crown as you're looking at the coin, it's time to change your tires. Now, if you can't see her head or the crown, then you've got a little bit of life left. So that's the easy way when looking at tires from a wear perspective. Mm-hmm. I think it's also important to note that you should check on different positions of the tire. So checking on one groove of your tire and saying, oh, there's some wear life there, I'm good to go, doesn't necessarily mean that it's that same way across the entire pattern. So you should check at multiple points, because you might have some irregular wear happening where it looks like you're fine and have plenty of wear life in the shoulder of your tire, but the center rib of your tire is completely bald. And a lot of these are due to improper inflation. So it's part of like regular tire maintenance and inspection. So if your tire is regularly uninflated, you're going to burn off the rubber in the shoulders more quickly and have some center. And then conversely, if you overinflate your tires, you're inflating them to, let's say you just look at the number on the sidewall, which is the maximum inflation pressure, and you say, that's how much I want to put in there. Not only is your tire going to ride like a rock, but you're going to wear the center of your tire out. And then you'll be deceived when you look at your shoulder as you walk past your car and say, oh, that looks like there's plenty of tread life in the shoulder there, where in the center, you're probably going to be close to bald. So those are wear concerns. Outside of wondering whether you need to change your tires for wear, you should probably be doing regular inspections anyway, where it's just examining your tires, the sidewall. Do you have any cuts or abrasions? Do you have any like dents, or on the other side of that coin, do you have any bulges in the sidewall? Like all of these can relay to you that there's been something that's happened when you were driving, whether you hit a pothole or something gouged the side of your tire. And without regular inspection, you might not see that. And then unfortunately, you find out about it at a very inopportune time where now you need a spare tire. And then I think the third thing that I'll relay here. So we've talked about like acute damage from some type of impact, and we've talked about wear life. The third one is for folks who maybe don't drive a lot, and that's the aging out of your tires. Tires don't have an infinite life to them. We generally say if your tire is over 5 years old, you should probably be inspecting it just for aging, whether that's like some dry aging or cracking or crumbling that happens to the rubber when it's exposed to UV rays and ozone and anything else in the environment. But we do have a pretty firm recommendation from the Bridgestone side, and we are not novel in the tire industry, that if your tire is over 10 years old, you need to replace it. And a good way to check that out, if you're not familiar, is the DOT stamping on your tire. At the end of that tire code is a 4-digit code, and that code is the week and the year that your tire was made. So the first 2 digits will be the week, the second 2 digits are the year. If when you look at that year, it is 10 years before the current date, you should probably look at changing that tire because it will have aged out.
Yeah. And if you see the cords sticking to the tread, stop driving.
Yeah, if you're seeing any type of fabric or metal, get to a shop and get those replaced pretty quickly.
Yeah. Yeah. So the uneven wear kind of leads to my next question. How important is it, or what are the issues with having a mismatched set of tires? So different brands even, or just different lines within the brand?
Sure. This is another one that's, if you spend any time in public, you'll see this pretty regularly. People with mismatched tires, to varying degrees of impact on what they're going to feel in their car. So without going any further into performance or anything, you should always make sure you have the same size tires in all positions of your car. If you're driving on different size tires, one, it's going to affect your driving feel and even being able to steer down the road, but you're also inducing opportunities for some serious mechanical issues in your vehicle, especially if you're side to side, you have different size tires. You're going to cook a differential or something else pretty quickly.
Yeah, differentials love going at different speeds, having each tire go different speed for extended periods of time.
Right, and you know what? If you don't destroy your differential, you're going to wear one tire down so quickly, they're going to want to meet in the middle. They're going to want to reach some level of equilibrium in terms of circumference of the tire. So if you have a bigger tire on one side and a smaller on the other, if you don't burn up the differential, you're going to wear out the one tire until they match in terms of outside diameter, which means you're going to wear off all the tread rubber on one side very, very quickly. So that's the first step. Just make sure that the right size. It is always our position at Bridgestone, and kind of being a little more enthusiastic on the tire side, is if you have the ability, always change 4 tires at a time. Have a matching set. We also understand that, that's not the reality for everyone. So if you're going to change tires, at least do it in pairs. You're going to want to have axles matching when it comes to tires. Beyond that, obviously we said make them the same size. It's ideal to have them be like the same load index and speed rating, so that each tire is able to carry the same amount of load and they're rated to go the same speed, because they're all on the same vehicle. So they're all going to be seeing the same thing. And then as we get down a little bit finer in detail, if you can't do the same tire, try to make it in the same segment. So if you're running a touring tire, don't try to pair it with a max traction or an all-terrain tire. Like, keep them within the same segment. So you don't have the ability to buy 2 of the exact tires that, let's say, you have on the front. At least get a touring tire on the back to match. Finally, I guess what I would say is, if you do go with 2 tire changes, we always recommend that the new tires go on the rear axle. And this is for safety issues and for performance issues, because we understand that there's going to be some differential in performance anytime you're mix matching different tires. We're trying to get them as close as we can with, of course, size and segment, understanding that they're going to have the same flavor of performance. They're never going to be exact. But if you are going to have some level of mismatch, you want the new tires on the rear. So that way, any type of condition that someone sees, they're going to more likely be in an understeer condition than, say, a snap oversteer condition, where a lot of people don't have the driving tools to recover from that. And so just for safety reasons, it's better to put the new set on the rear, have the existing set that you're keeping, the existing pair on the front, just for driving and safety concerns.
That's good to hear, and it's good advice for people who, tires aren't getting any cheaper, and so more and more people are just switching in pairs, and so that's good advice. Thanks, Ian.
Sure.
So on a sort of similar note, and we talked about this just before we actually started the recording. There's so many tire choices out there nowadays, and because there's new brands entering the ring every week. So what's a really helpful way for consumers to kind of choose the right tire for their vehicle when it comes time to replace?
Sure. So there are a lot of factors that come into play when people are making a buying decision about tires, and sometimes there's not a lot of time to plan ahead of time. It's a sudden thing for some folks, like, oh, I'm going to the store, I need to get a tire today, just to make my life happen. Some things that they need to keep in mind, and I think there are maybe three main categories. One is the seasonality, the climate, the weather conditions that you're experiencing. Where you live, how does that dictate what you're going to need to react to on the roads? So, if you live somewhere where you get excessive amounts of snow performance, and maybe even a dedicated winter tire at times, is important for you. If you're somewhere where it rains all the time, then you should really be thinking about wet performance and water evacuation. If you live in the desert, then maybe those things don't matter to you as much, and you're really just worried about wear performance. Wear life is the only thing I care about, because I'm never going to see a flake of snow, and I'm never going to see a drop of rain. So just where you live, the geography and the climate is going to dictate partly how you should make your buying decision. Second is driving style, and some of these pair similarly to climate. If you are maybe a little more enthusiastic, depending on where you live, like if you are an enthusiastic driver, a spirited driver, and you live somewhere where there's snow, you're probably going to want that dedicated winter tire so that it matches up with the level of performance you desire, matches the climate where you live. Whereas if you're an enthusiast driver and prefer to take the long way home, and you're hugging every turn and really goosing it to get on the interstate or something, and you live in the desert, then maybe a performance summer tire is fine for you, because you're not worried about the winter and the wet performance as much as just pure grip. So you can kind of make those designations not only by where you live, but your style. And conversely, if you aren't an enthusiast and you're just a daily commuter, and say you live in an urban environment, maybe thinking about wear life, where you're doing a lot of stops and starts, so maybe braking performance or rolling resistance. I'm a commuter. All I do is go to and from work, and I'm concerned about fuel mileage and what I'm spending to get to work every day. Maybe you lean towards rolling resistance and wear life, and you're not so much worried about the ragged edge of like how much grip, how quickly can I take this turn. And so your driving style can dictate that as well. And then finally, road type. Where are you driving? Are you in an urban environment where everything is paved and pretty smooth? You're fine. Or do you see yourself maybe going off road or going through, a meadow or some grass or some things like that, where like my vehicle's not going to spend 100% of its life on the road, but it's going to do some other things, maybe some gravel, some mud. That's going to dictate to me that, hey, maybe this touring tire that's meant for a commuter probably isn't going to perform for me as well as I need, maybe an all-terrain tire or something a bit more aggressive to handle the wet grass or the mud that I plan on going through every couple weekends when I go out to the farm or whatever, to my cabin in the woods. So then maybe those are the three things, and I'll recap them once again: seasonality, driving style, and then road conditions.
All right. Oh, that's great information. You're giving us a lot of great information. I think a lot of people think they know a lot about potentially cars and tires, that there could be one tidbit there they didn't know, and then there's a lot of people who don't know anything and they want to learn. So it's all been great advice. We really thank you for coming on the show. On an aside, we have a thing called Project Genesis Coupe that we're using the eBay Motors guaranteed fit to find parts to sort of fix up and repair my car. And we've decided that for tires, we're going with the Firestone Indy 500s. So looking forward to getting those on. They're upsized and way wider. So I'm going to hopefully get to the track and test them out at some point. But yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, they look like excellent tires. So again, so thank you very much and hope to talk to you again sometime.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure. Thanks for having me, guys.
Thanks so much, Ian.
Now time for our weekly Formula One segment. We have Colin Wood joining us again. What's been going on this week? Or though maybe we should talk about what happened last week first.
Yes. It was a good race, actually. There's been a lot of, I would say, well, there's been a few kind of meh races. That one, I mean, at front was kind of always decided, I guess, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. There was like, you know, crashes, there was broken cars, there was everything, right? So.
Yeah, I would also say we were both right with our prediction. We said Lando was going to win, and then he came second, which to me is winning because first place is kind of already decided every race. So whoever comes second is the real winner.
You're right. We're both winners. Us and Lando, we're all in a big pile together there.
Exactly.
So.
I honestly really feel bad for him. Well, everyone, but him and Charles and some of these other young these other young guys, because their legacy and their history is not going to look great with the wins, but it's because they're racing in the Verstappen era. He's going to probably be there their whole career. So they could be, you know, fighting for first constantly if it was any other era. But then again, 26, the cars could change.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah. I think we're going to see lots changing. I actually say that race, I think one of the most, the chaos with the bumper cars, everybody kind of drove into each other.
Yeah.
It created, I think, the most exciting part of the race to me. Anyway, I was like jumping out of my seat when it was Stroll and K-Mag were like battling, and they were doing this like pass and then repass, and then it was because both of them I think both had damage, and both were, you know, they had penalties. They were not going to get any points, and so they were just fighting for sort of ego and rage. And you know, K-Mag likes to get his elbows out, so they were. It was so aggressive, but it was very thrilling, and you kind of thought that either of them was just going to throw it away because neither of them cared anymore anyway. So that's kind of like the most dangerous maybe racing, but it was pretty intense. I've never enjoyed a battle for, I think it was like 16th so much in my life. So
yeah, that rear-ending thing was pretty bad, but we won't get into that. So what's been going on since? Any good rumors?
Oh, there are so many rumors. So maybe by the time this goes live, it'll be old news. The Nico Hülkenberg, that's the news that's breaking as of today, which is that he's left Haas and moving officially, I guess technically, to Sauber. But that's really an Audi deal, right? So Audi's coming in 2026, and they want to have a German driver, and they've got one now. So I think that's locked in. What that sort of does as well, though, is that kind of, I mean, first of all, that means that either Zhu or Bottas are out, right? Mm-hmm. But that also really sort of lights a fire under Sainz to actually sign a contract, because I think all the rumors are that Audi has offered him one, and they want to get him. And, you know, he's kind of, you know, he's shopping himself around, which you would, but he's this could actually push him to actually make a decision, because it's not like there's two seats left. There's only one seat left. So
the deal doesn't start till 26, or is it going to be next year? Because I thought Audi might be around next year just to kind of get a feel.
So my understanding is the deal starts next year. So he's out Haas at the end of this year. He'll start at Sauber next year. But what's confusing is that Audi doesn't come in until the year after that. So it's still going to be Sauber. But because effectively the way it's working is Audi is buying Sauber. It's funny because in the past, Sauber has like traded hands, but it's always been like a sponsorship. Like it used to be BMW Sauber for years, but that was just BMW putting their name in front of it, and Sauber was Sauber. But this is going to be like, no, like Sauber's selling the whole place off to Audi, and they're going to turn it into their, you know, their works team rather than build something from the ground up. So I guess, yeah, he'll be there as of next year, but next year it'll still be Sauber, and then I don't know how much longer it goes. I think maybe a year or two after that, and so he'll be around for the first days of Audi. So,
yeah, and as you said, if Sainz goes there, then both current drivers are out. You'd think Bottas would show up somewhere, but maybe they'll go with those two. Who knows? Guess we'll have to wait another year or two to see.
It's going to be a wild, like off season, the silly season, and it's going to go through the whole year. Like all these pieces are moving. We're going to have juicy stuff every week to talk about, because there's all these drivers moving places, and this is just the next step. Another juicy step on that piece is that we've heard this idea that if people aren't familiar, there's a Formula 2 driver, Andrea Kimi Antonelli. Yes, another Kimi. And he's rumored to be potentially a spot to fulfill Hamilton's seat at Mercedes. But the most recent rumor is that he could actually, to get him ready for that, find himself in a Williams as early as the first Italian GP. So basically, Logan Sargent will race in Miami because it's an American race and he's an American. And then afterwards, they'll send Logan away and Kimi or Andrea will show up and see what he can do. So it's a plausible rumor as far as I can see, but the guy he's not even 18 yet. So I don't know if he'd be the youngest ever driver. I think Max still might have checked that box, but I think he needs some sort of special dispensation granted from the FIA to be able to actually drive. So it's a funny setup.
Yeah, I could see Williams parting ways with Logan. I know he brings some money to the team, but the way they've treated him the last couple of weeks, like taking his car for his other teammate, and I mean his results haven't been great.
Yeah.
We can say the same for some other drivers too that maybe won't be around by 26. I think a lot of teams are looking at it like, let's get a solid lineup, and we could be the next one that takes over.
Yeah, and I love this. I love this. There's two sides. Right? I love having the old guys around who can still do it, right? Like when you see Hamilton, when you see an Alonso, and they're still some of the very best drivers in the field, despite their old age, right? Both being younger than me, but that's okay. Seeing the new guys come up is still exciting, and that's actually one of the. It seems obvious that Ollie Behrman, who raced one of the races this year when Sainz was out with his appendicitis, and he actually scored points. He's likely to take the spot at Haas as well. So from Nico, so that makes sense. So we're going to see hopefully, I think a bunch more young drivers show up on the field.
Yeah, because Ferrari has that sort of partnership engine-wise, at least with Haas. So maybe put him there for a couple of years and then bring him up to the big team when he's ready. Yeah, well, it kind of showed he was ready already, but I mean he's in high school, so they probably want to wait a little bit more.
I know,
just right? Crazy. Go get points in F1 race and then go back to school Monday.
I know that's got to be hard to do.
Yeah.
But the biggest and juiciest story is, I think, Adrian Newey. It was, I think, on this podcast last week or the week before, I was like, well, this is a BS rumor and he's not going anywhere. But there's a lot of sources saying right now, and they're sort of quoting multiple people that he is done at Red Bull. Yeah,
I've heard it's not even a rumor, he's done, and people just don't know if he's going to a team or if he's just ready to retire. But the consensus seems he's going back to the UK. So it's either a UK team or retirement. Like the big rumor of Ferrari doesn't seem to be what it's going to be, but I don't know. I mean, he's not going to Williams, so McLaren, if anything, but I don't know. I mean, Aston Martin's based out of there too, so who knows?
I mean, Aston Martin would be wild. That'd be very interesting to see. Lawrence Stroll is willing to pay big bucks to do things, right? It's obvious. I don't know. The Ferrari rumor still holds a lot of weight, right? Like he goes to Ferrari, Hamilton. You get to work with Ferrari and Hamilton, Adrian Newey together. Like that seems like such a great combo. So I'm excited either way, but it sounds like there's a lot of backroom negotiation in terms of his contract is he legally can't work for another team until after the 2025 season. And I'm seeing rumors that would push it up until there's a sort of a non-compete type of situation. So he couldn't even be on until 2027. And the guy's already 65. So, by then you're closing on 70. I feel like you might want to take some of your hard-earned money and, go buy a boat or something. So,
yeah, well, to what you're saying too. I mean, he might want to go work with Alonso. But with Lawrence Stroll, the money he's putting in, signing him long term, and let's say he's getting some good designers. I mean, does he spend more money and take his son out of his seat so he gets two really competitive drivers? Who knows?
He probably should. All right, but he doesn't seem to have any interest in doing that. So I don't know. That's when we'll know they're serious, right? That's the way I look at it. Aston Martin's serious when they find another driver. So.
All right. Well, getting kind of long right now, so we should probably wrap this up. We'll see, I guess, next week if any of these have been expanded on. I mean, probably won't have any more driver changes, but maybe we'll know where Nui ended up going. We'll find out.
I figure we're going to have to know soon. The British media won't let this up. They'll be all over it. So it'll be. I'll keep you posted. But by the time this goes live on Monday, you'll probably already know the answer. So
Yeah, that's true. They'll be hounding them all weekend probably.
I bet.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. We'll see you next week.
Awesome. Thanks, Mike.
Welcome back, everyone. We are on site in Southern California at what we're calling Toyota Palooza, where there's a whole bunch of new models, but I'm here with a very special guest who I'm going to ask to introduce himself for us.
How do you do? Sheldon Brown, Chief Engineer at Tacoma.
Hi, Sheldon.
How are you?
I am doing great. How are you doing?
It's good. It's we're wrapping up a couple of long days here, but really excited to have all you guys come through and have a chance to drive our trucks, drive our vehicles, and a lot of new product, as you said.
Yes, quite a lot. So, on that note, I have a few questions for you about the Tacoma Hybrid.
Absolutely.
To start, you were talking a little bit earlier about the suspension changes that you've made for this iForce Max powertrain. Can you walk us through some of those differences?
Yeah, absolutely. So really, we're going to feature 3 unique suspensions. For our Trail Hunter model, we have our TRD Pro model, and then also we talked about the all-wheel drive limited, which gets the active variable suspension as well. So that one's pretty straightforward. We have an active variable suspension. It is somewhat new. We have an all-new tune. Really tried to take the goalposts and expand them. So the comfort is a lot more plush, sport's a lot more sporty, and so it's been a little bit more of a, I'll say, a better offering to give wider variety to the customers in the limited area. Of course, we're standing here next to the Trail Hunter, and that one features our old man EV. Those are 2.5-inch absorbers, and we're using some end-stop control as well as some bypass zones to make sure that we have really good on-road performance. But on the same token, we're making sure that this thing operates really well laden, sort of rock crawling, medium speed off-roading. And then, of course, our TRD Pro, which is sort of our Baja-inspired go-fast truck, and that one we're using the Fox QS3 switchable shocks. And so those are designed to have 3 different settings. The first setting is really focused for, comfortable on road. You can dial it up a little bit for that sort of medium to the medium heavy off-roading. And then the third setting is really for that, what we talked about, that sort of desert running. And so we're pairing that together with, billeted upper control arms, as well as on the Pro, we have the hydrogel stoppers in the back as well. So really trying to make sure when you get that big impact, that big energy, truck rides out and settles out real nice.
Excellent. Yeah, you were talking earlier too about the increased angle up on the suspension.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that really is for those the front drive shafts. So on the CV joint, we're able to go from 26 degrees up to 31 degrees. So it's high articulation. More importantly, the spline that we're designing for those is also meant to accept that higher torque at those higher articulation angles. So that's a really important piece of hardware, especially when you're off-roading, especially when you have 326 horsepower and 465 pound-feet of torque. At something quite as simple as 1,700 RPM, we're spinning that up pretty quick.
Yeah, and it's it's impressive. I took this off that very technical track, and it just eats it up, right?
Well, great. And that's what it's designed to. And then when you're operating in that environment, you're probably 4 low, maybe you are in that particular situation. We've also made sure to change not only the pedal map but the throttle response so that there's good controllability, because you're in that reduction gear. And you have this high torque motor. We want to make sure it wasn't too jumpy, so you get a chance to really. The idea of that track was to really demonstrate the controllability of the truck.
Yeah, and it does it really well. Like you said, it's very smooth. You're not getting any of these jerky motions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And on that note, how important was it for advancing that crawl control, because it's different. It's improved for this one.
It is. It really is. And so obviously this is the next generation of Tacoma, and we had to step it up across a number of different I'll say the technology features that we provided. We wanted to take advantage of the torque response of this motor, as well as with these new our master cylinder and our braking systems. We have a lot better brake support. We also have, I'll say disc brakes now in the rear as well. So taking advantage of that, a lot of folks, in the past have said, wow, the traction control system is really kind of noisy. It's near silent now. and it operates a lot smoother. We have a much better response in terms of, you know, how fast we can raise the brake pressure and how we can control those wheels when they're slipping. So it's really been taken to the next level. We've added a couple of other features now. We've got a rock mode, and we've got, and this is in our multi-terrain select, we've got deep snow, sand, mud. So really making sure that we're changing the traction control algorithms based on what the vehicle is experiencing. So.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. So because Trailhunter is big news, it's all new.
Yeah.
And it's debuting a whole new trim for Toyota itself.
Absolutely.
What were some of the challenges that the development team ran into when, you know, crafting this truck and separating it from TRD Pro?
Yeah, no, it's really, thanks, great question. So first of all, we wanted to make from, like, you know, from as the chief engineer and as the product development team, all the people on my team, we had to have a very clear vision for what this truck was meant to do. And so how do we separate it, right? And we sort of said very simply, you know, TRD Pro is go fast, Trailhunter is go far, right? And that was sort of the very basic way. But really what we were saying was, when we looked at the new Pro, what we talked about in like the walk around was that, you know, we wanted to make it go fast, or we wanted to make it light, nimble, off-road. Not exactly the same attributes that you might put into a vehicle when you wanted to be able to, you know, pack all your gear and do technical rock crawling. And so that's why we really said, okay, there's really two different serviceable needs, and let's approach it from those two perspectives. And then really the focus on this truck, although it was a broader theme across all of the trucks, was the concept of accessorization and the concept of people wanting to make it their truck, right? So personalization as well. And so when we really looked at this, and I think one of the challenges our team had is we had to think beyond, like, not just what is it going to look like as it rolls off the line, but how are our customers going to modify them? How are they, what provisions might they need? How can we assist them in making that job a little bit easier? So we had to really think about it through the eyes of the customer and a wide range of customers. And so we had to be very thoughtful about how we went about that. We tackled some of that by providing some of those accessories ourselves, but we always wanted to think about the truck across not just the first purchase, but through the life of the truck, right? So maybe the second owner has a very, very different, you know, lifestyle or need than the original owner. And so making sure that we've thought about the truck in its totality from, I'll say, the day that it was produced to, you know, end of life, making sure that we had a lot of flexibility.
Excellent. Yeah, we see that on the sides, as you pointed out, throughout this event. You can...
we got rock rails, we got you know, steps or rails, side steps, and we've got rocker protectors, and we've got roof racks, and, you know, all kinds of stuff, deck racks, everything you could hopefully want.
Speaking of things that people might want, those new seats in the TRD Pro, the isodynamic seats, they're witchcraft.
Okay.
But if you can answer this,
sure.
I noticed that they're not in the 4Runner TRD Pro.
They are not offered right now in the TRD 4Runner. And there's a lot of discussion that went into it. We certainly think that there's a good, I'll say, cross-vehicle application for those. But right now, one of the I'll say the issues for us is in Japan, with the amount of line space that we have and the ability to put those into the vehicle. This has been a bit of a drawback for us. And we looked at some of the other ideas, which would be potentially, you know, to do those port install. But we got to work through the logistics to make sure that we can keep the cost down, so that we can make it affordable to the customers, right? We don't want to have a really overly expensive solution. So maybe as it launches, you won't find them, but that's not to suggest that somewhere in the future we can't find a pathway forward.
I like that. I like that answer. Talking about ownership costs and those sorts of things, we talked about this on the gas model launch late last year, and I've got to ask, because people always are asking us.
Sure.
What sort of reliability testing have you gone through with this new powertrain, especially with the hybrid aspect, right? Like, what can you tell those folks who are, you know, V6 diehards, and
sure,
they're a little shocked by a hybrid?
Sure. Well, you know, I think from a total Toyota perspective, we've been saying, I think, for the last at least 5 years, that by 2025, all of our vehicles have some sort of electrification. So it was only a matter of time before, you know, finally the trucks would be the benefactor of such electrification. Specific to the hybrid, what I can tell you is, the good news is a lot of this is the same type of hybrid, except the exact same battery, the exact same one motor generator that we're using in Tundra and Sequoia. So we've already got a couple of years of production under our belt in those. They're also being used in other applications around the globe. And what's good to know is that we do have a lot of experience with that. maybe more importantly is the technology that we're actually using. So specifically the nickel metal hydride battery. That is a cell in a format that is tried and true over millions and millions of miles across multiple different vehicle platforms. So I think that's where we can really assure the, I'll say, the reliability in the truck environment. As to the powertrain itself, of course, the second piece of that is the L4 versus the outgoing V6. And again, I think it's important for our customers to remember that this was designed to be a turbo from the beginning. In our powertrain teams, in our chief engineer of the unit of the engine itself, Mr. Ikeda, was very thoughtful about this, recognizing that, okay, this is going to be an engine that's going to be applied in a truck. It's going to have truck duty cycles. So as we looked at the turbo and we looked at other elements of that, I'll say, powertrain, we made sure that they went not just to our normal pass car, but we went above and beyond to our commercial grade. And the commercial grade was important because that means you're getting about 50% greater duty cycle, and we test all that. But the important piece of that as well is that, of course, we have real world miles on this as well. So we've got a fleet of about 40 vehicles that have been tested and worked on. And in those vehicles, we have over 75,000 miles on a couple trucks of real world, real hard world miles, probably about 300,000 miles of overall, I'll say, throughout the course of development, testing these trucks, putting them through all different sort of phases, whether that be towing, hot weather, climbing, off-roading. So a lot of physical testing that goes along with the development. And that's not even including the dyno testing.
There we go, which we could go into on a whole other note.
That's right.
But I mean, you've covered a lot of ground here. I just have one final question for you.
Sure.
Which one would you pick? Trail Hunter or TRD Pro?
That's sort of like asking, which of my children do I like best?
Which is basically what I asked Shimizu-san.
Shimizu-san, did you? The
earlier,
same?
yeah.
Okay.
I asked about Crown.
Yeah, right. Boy, I tell you, I'm torn. I've been really angling with my wife to say maybe we should have one of each. I love the Pro for going fast, but the practicality of what I use every single day, this truck really does meet my probably everyday lifestyle. With that said, I think it's going to be a tough one for me, but I've got a couple of months before we're in production and ready to go on this, so I've got a little bit of time to chew on it, but I'll let you know when I finally decide.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
Well, Sheldon, thanks so much for taking the time to answer our questions, and thanks for building a wicked truck.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
You bet.
Well, I think you've convinced me that I need to try that truck out, especially the hybrids. So, hopefully this summer I'll get a crack behind the wheel. Let's talk about what's next. So for me, it's nothing. Next week, I'm going to get the Genesis back and hopefully get a bunch more parts installed for future episodes. Stuff keeps coming in, but it's coming in like weird batches. So I got a little bit of everything, but nothing full yet. So yeah, hopefully I'll have an update on that. And Kyle, what are you up to next week?
So I am going to be in a Mini. It's the last Mini manual. So it's the 1-6 edition, which celebrates the stick and the 3-pedal setup. And I'm looking forward to it because I've weirdly never driven the 3-door JCW. And so I get to drive the hottest of hot hatch version. Well, not the crazy GP. But beyond that, this is the quickest regular 3-door Mini. So yeah, I'm excited, but also it's a little bittersweet because it's the last of its kind.
And you're lucky too. It's supposed to be pretty nice next week, so you have some good weather to really enjoy it, because that's a car that, nice warm sunny days, it's just so much fun. Anyway, I will be envious from a distance, but I'll be busy. So that wraps up another week. This has been the Auto Guide Show, brought to you by eBay Motors. Until next week, we'll see you later.
So long.
eBay Motors is here for the ride. Your elbow grease, fresh installs, and a whole lot of love transformed 100,000 miles and a body full of rust into a driveway entirely its own. Brake kits, LED headlights, whatever you need, eBay Motors has it. And with the eBay Guaranteed Fit, it's guaranteed to fit your ride the first time, every time, or your money back. Plus, at these prices, you're burning rubber, not cash. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply.